is Emily Kincaid, an attorney who lives in Brighton Heights and a candidate for the Democratic nomination in the 20th Legislative District. Emily, welcome. It's good to have you here.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So let me ask you to give us, perhaps a 60-second elevator speech. Who is Emily Kincaid?
I am an attorney and I'm a policy advocate with over a decade of experience working on the issues that are most important in our society. I've worked on disability rights and campaign finance reform and gerrymandering reform and criminal justice reform. And I want to take all of those experiences to Harrisburg and fight for District 20.
You are taking on an incumbent state representative with a very familiar name, Representative Adam Ravenstahl, the younger brother of the former mayor of Pittsburgh, Luke Ravenstahl. Why do you want to be a state representative?
I think especially now with coronavirus, it's really demonstrated that we need people in Harrisburg who are going to be champions for our district. And I believe that District 20 has been stagnant for the time that Adam has been in office. We are seeing food deserts and transportation deserts and people priced out of their homes in Lawrenceville and Polish Hill and businesses closing in the Strip and landslides and the effects of climate change. And not enough is being done to address it. And I think it's largely because this is a person who hasn't spoken on the floor of the House for or against anything in his 10 years in office.
Wait a minute. Are you saying that Representative Ravenstahl has never spoken on the House floor in his 10 years?
Not to my knowledge. Everything that I have looked up or seen, all the research that I've done has shown that he's never spoken on the floor.
Are there policy positions that he has taken that you oppose? Is there some, besides not speaking up, which is the accusation you've made, are there some policy differences between the two of you?
I think the biggest one is he voted for HB 1100, which would have given $1 billion in subsidies to the petrochemical industry at a time when we have the worst air quality and some of the worst water quality in the nation. And we can't be subsidizing an industry that's going to make that worse. The other thing is he voted for an E-Verify bill. An E-Verify is a racist program that targets Black and brown workers. And it is something that does not actually make our system safer or prevent really undocumented immigrants from working. It just targets Black and brown people.
Well, let me ask you about both those issues. First, on the environmental issue, are you saying just straight out you are anti-fracking?
I am. I'm anti-fracking, but I'm not anti-fracking worker. And I think that that's an important distinction because I think a lot of times when we talk about a moratorium on fracking, we don't talk about the impact that would have on people. We can't do to our fracking industry workers what we did to the steel industry, what we've done to the coal industry. We need to make sure that we transition away from fracking in a way that protects our workers. But I do believe that we absolutely need to be moving away from fracking and we need to be doing it now.
Would you shut down the petrochemical plant being constructed in Beaver?
I would. I think that Allegheny County is perfectly poised to be at the forefront of a green economy, and we don't need to be building a cracker plant. We should be building wind turbines and solar panels. We have world-class labor unions in this area and a world-class innovation industry with our universities. And I believe that we can marry those together with the subsidies that Representative Ravenstahl wanted to give to the petrochemical industry and make Allegheny County a hub of the green economy.
Ms. Kincaid, let me ask you about the E-Verify system. I'm not sure I understand it entirely. Is this designed so that employers do not hire workers who are not legal residents of the country?
That's the claim. That's what it purports to do. The problem is that you end up with a lot of false positives, which means that people who are actually legally allowed to work are not able to work because they come up as not having the right paperwork. And the other aspect is it is applied disproportionately to people who are Black and brown, and not to white workers, even white immigrant workers, who may actually not be authorized to work in the United States. So it's a system that doesn't work, and it's part of the reason why I'm very proud to be endorsed by SEIU, because they fight for workers' rights, and against these kinds of very bad policy to protect our frontline workers and people who just want to put a roof over their head and keep food on the table.
Let me ask you about another issue that important to a lot of people, and that is the issue of women's health, abortion, and the like. Planned Parenthood, I believe, initially endorsed you, and then endorsed Adam Ravenstahl. Are you troubled by that?
Well, so they initially endorsed him, and then they endorsed me because of a massive outcry that what they had done was not in line with their actual values. Adam has been openly pro-life for a majority of the time that he spent in office. Only in 2019, and only in response to a question asked about the fact that he was being challenged by a woman for the first time, did he ever announce that he was pro-choice. And he's never explained it in any, aha moment of like, this is what made me evolve on this issue, and why I all of a sudden believe that women should have the right to choose and have, autonomy over their own body. And to a further extent, he still is not able to articulate what it means to him, because reproductive justice isn't just about abortion. It's about, people being able to choose if, when, and how they have children. It's about repealing our forced sterilization laws. It's about making sure that adoption is accessible to everyone, regardless of sexual orientation. Those are all reproductive justice issues, and all issues that he's been silent.
Are there other issues, Ms. Kinkead, that separate you from Representative Ravenstahl?
I think that the biggest issue between us is really our approach to the position. It is a proactive versus a reactive approach. I want to be out and in the community and meeting people where they are to make sure that I'm addressing the issues that need to be addressed. And that doesn't just mean things that are within my purview as a state representative. It would be things that come up because I have relationships with city council and municipal councils, and our federal representatives and our county representatives, to make sure that everybody's needs are being addressed and that we're working together effectively. He largely asks people to come to him. If you need anything, come find me. But I would guarantee you that most people, your average person, they don't even know what a state representative does specifically for them, or what they have the ability to do. So my approach is to be out in the community and talking to people and making decisions with constituents and not for them.
Let me ask you now about the campaign itself, because he has, first, you have out-fundraised him. You've raised more money than he's raised. Very unusual for a challenger taking on an incumbent legislator. But his criticism, or one of his criticisms, is that you took a very large $50,000 check from the Service Employees Union, SEIU. Mm-hmm. First of all, did you? And why did you?
Yeah, SEIU funded my race with a $50,000 contribution. And, while I am absolutely in favor of campaign finance reform and absolutely actually in favor of public financing of elections, the fact of the matter is, in order to get in the game, you have to play by the rules that are set, which means you have to fundraise. And I'm proud to be endorsed by SEIU. I'm proud of the investment that they made in this race, because they decided that this was important to their members. These are, remember, SEIU represents our frontline workers, our healthcare workers, the people who are considered essential in this pandemic. And yet these are also the workers who are more likely to be underpaid and undervalued. They don't have the kind of benefits that they need in order to weather a storm like this. They're living paycheck to paycheck. This is them collectively putting their money behind a candidate that they believe will do better for them in Harrisburg to make sure that they are protected and they are supported and that their voice is heard.
You say you support campaign finance reform. You know, Pennsylvania is one of the few states that has no campaign limits at all. Many states you can only give $1,000 or a set limit. But here in this state, the reason you can take $50,000 is because there are no limits on how much money people contribute. Would you vote for a bill that would limit campaign contributions, and what would that limit be?
I would vote for a bill that would limit campaign contributions. I think that you have to play by the rules of the system to be able to get in and change the system. So that is absolutely something that I've been pushing for. From when I was in college, I worked on campaign finance reform, and it specifically to try and get public financing of elections so that, our campaign system, our electoral system is accessible to everybody. If you have a system where, you get small dollar donations from individuals living in your district, and that triggers a certain amount of money that then allows you to be competitive and run a race based on ideas and not connections, that only benefits our democracy. That's something that allows every individual who lives in a district to be able to run regardless of whether or not they have wealthy friends. And I think that we need more people who have diverse experiences in our halls of power. So I believe that we need public financing of elections, but in terms of just a campaign finance cap, I think we should go along with the federal caps.
Are you getting individual contributions as well?
I am. We've received over 400 individual contributions. And I mean, to Representative Ravenstahl's criticism, I received one $50,000 donation from SEIU, which it's the largest labor union in the nation. And so it represents a lot of diverse voices. But at the same time, I've gotten over 400 individual contributors to donate to my campaign. Representative Ravenstahl has received 18 individual contributions to his campaign, and the rest of his money is coming from PACs.
I guess finally on this, I should ask, you don't think it's hypocritical to take a $50,000 check, even though you say you oppose that kind of financing of a campaign because you're, quote, playing by the current rules? Is that it?
I think the system is hypocritical, but we have to work with the system that we have in order to be able to change it. So, do I ever want to take, $50,000 from anyone to be able to run a race? It's not ideal, but it is something that we need to do for as long as this is the system that we have in order to get good people who represent, labor unions like SEIU, one of the most diverse, the largest labor union in our nation. Those are diverse voices that, we have a ton of SEIU members in this district. Those are people who are investing in my race and live in my district.
Final quick questions. First, it must be really tough to campaign in the midst of a pandemic. How are you running for this office?
It feels very much like campaigning in a foreign language. So it's been very interesting. And I tell people that, if I win, it is going to be very interesting to run again in 2022, because I'm not going to know how to do it the normal way. But before the shutdown, we had knocked over 10,000 doors. And so we used that momentum and just shifted it right into phone banking and text banking. We've been doing Monday meet and greets where we just put a call out to anyone who wants to submit a question, and I will answer it right on camera, uncensored, unfiltered, so people can get to know me, so people can understand what it is that I stand for and why it is that I want to, why it is that I'm running, what it is that I want to do in office. And so, yeah, it's been a lot of time in front of the camera, just like this, and trying to get my message out. yeah, it's been a very interesting ride.
I'm sure it has been. And then finally, let me give you 30 seconds. Make your pitch to the Democratic voters of the 20th District. Why should they vote for Emily Kincaid, either by mail or on Tuesday?
This race ultimately comes down to experience. And it's the experience between someone who has maintained the status quo and led to a stagnant District 20, or experience with somebody who has constantly fought for change and been a voice for people who have been underrepresented and marginalized. Someone who has pushed constantly to make sure that every person is protected and every person is supported. And that is what I want to do in Harrisburg. I want to make sure that we are fighting for every person and pushing our district forward.
Well, Emily Kincaid, Democratic candidate for the Democratic nomination in the 20th Legislative District. Thank you so much for sharing time with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm John Delano, political editor at KDK Television. Our special guest today is State Representative Adam Ravenstahl from the 20th Legislative District. Adam, good to be with you.
John, thank you for having me, as always.
So let me ask you, Representative, if you could give us your 60-second elevator speech. Who is Adam Ravenstahl?
He's a gentleman who's been the state representative in the 20th district for the last 10 years. I think we've done a very good job. We pride ourselves on the constituent services we provide to every neighborhood, every resident in the 20th district. We've also been able to bring back over $10 million in grants in 2019 alone. For parks, for infrastructure, for the arts, you name it, we've been able to do that. I also think I do a good job representing my district in Harrisburg through my votes. My district has changed, and I've been willing to adapt with it, and I think that's one of the main requirements of this position, is being willing to listen to folks and not just your way or the highway. In addition to that, I've been very accessible in the community. I'm proud to have the endorsement of several local elected officials, and I think that shows that they see me out there, they see me getting results, they see the experience that I have in Harrisburg and the ability that our office has to solve problems, and they've decided to support me.
Am I correct in thinking you have the support of the Allegheny County Democratic Committee, the Labor Council, and I believe even Mayor Peduto?
Yes, I am endorsed by the Allegheny County Democratic Committee, the Allegheny County, Allegheny Fayette Labor Council, Mayor Peduto, County Executive Fitzgerald, Congressman Doyle, Senator Fontana, Senator Lindsey Williams. I think if you pretty much go down the line for the majority of the elected officials, organizations, they are supporting my candidacy.
And yet, despite that, Representative, you've got a challenger, a pretty strong challenger, who's out fundraised you and has support from a number of organizations, Emily Kincaid. Why do you think you're getting such a strong challenge this year?
I think it's a combination of a couple things. Obviously my district has changed. I think that's certainly part of it. I also think it just goes back to, them viewing this as perhaps a winnable seat. I still think part of it has to do with my last name, quite honestly, which I've been dealing with for 10 years now. This will be the sixth term that I'm seeking, and this will be the sixth time that somebody, has attempted to get on the ballot on the Democratic side. So, my view on it is, I guess I am used to it for better or worse.
Well, let me push you on the name, because obviously the Ravenstahl name helped you to win the first time. Do you think it's a liability now?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm proud of my last name, and I will never shy away from that. My family has committed decades of community service, starting from my grandfather to my father to my brother to myself. I'm really proud of what we've been able to do for this community, and I will never shy away from that.
But you think it's a reason why you get a challenger? I think that's what you said.
Yeah, I think if you look at the article, that was put out a few weeks ago or maybe a month ago, where a specific union referenced my last name, I think that in itself is enough proof.
Well, let me ask you about some of the issues, if I may, because Ms. Kincaid basically draws distinctions with you on a number of issues. Maybe before I raise her issues, let me ask you, Are there specific issues that you think are clear differences between you and Ms. Kincaid?
I mean, generally, I think our policies are fairly in line, which is what's frustrating about, this process and really how the Democrats have approached things. I think we need to be focused on taking the majority, beating the Republicans and taking the Pennsylvania House. I mean, if you look at what happened in Harrisburg yesterday, I think you need no further evidence that we need to be focused on taking the House as opposed to, challenging Democrats who are good Democrats. Obviously, everybody has the right to run. I'm not suggesting that, but I think our focus needs to be on taking the Republicans out and getting the majority. So to answer your question, yeah, there may be a few differences, but overall, I don't think you're going to find too much difference between what she is trying to do and what I've already done.
Well, let me cite a couple that she raises. One was fracking. She is definitely opposed to fracking and says she would shut down the cracker plant in Beaver County. Would you do that?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, I think it can be done in a safe way. I'm proud of my environmental record. I think if you look back to the 2017, 2018 scorecard that the environmental groups put out, I was actually rated at 100%, which a lot of folks might not realize that. I know that there's, one vote that folks are pointing to, but I think it can be done, but it needs to be regulated. We need to invest in the Department of Environmental Protection. We need to make sure that if folks aren't following the rules, that there's a hefty fine behind it and some teeth behind these things.
So you're not anti-fracking?
No.
Another issue she raised was the E-Verify system, an immigration system where, if I understand correctly, it allows employers to make sure that their employees are either American citizens or have legal status to work in the United States. And I understand that you may have voted against a bill that, or you support E-Verify, and she calls it racist.
Yeah, I mean, that was a bill that we talked with the construction industry. First off, it was only intended for the construction industry. And, the trades reached out to us and said that a lot of the work, that they were bidding for or working on, the workers were coming in from, out of state, undocumented. So I have no issue with immigration. I didn't view that bill as an immigration vote. I simply viewed that as, trying to keep these jobs in Pennsylvania and for folks, who, deserve them.
Let me ask you about the issue of women's health, abortion, pro-choice, and the like, because apparently she claims that you were pro-life through the 2018 election, and then in 2019 you switched positions and announced you were pro-choice. Can you clarify exactly what your position is, and if you did make that change, why?
Yeah, no, I absolutely did. She is inaccurate on the date. I know that she has expressed that I've only changed my mind because she is running. That's 100% false. I think if you look back to the end of 2017, I think it goes back to then. And it's really about just representing my district. I mean, my district has changed. The area has changed. And, I'm proud of my willingness to listen to folks. I've met with doctors. I've met with advocates for Planned Parenthood. And I quite honestly have changed my mind due to their testimony and their stories. I think that's the job of a representative, is to accurately represent your district.
And so on the basis of conversations with members of your district and with physicians and organizations, you changed your point of view? It's really as simple as that?
Yep.
No. All right. Well, Representative Ravenstahl, let me ask you about another issue, and that has to do with fundraising in your campaign. Well, before I get to that, there was something else that Ms. Kincaid brought up. She alleges that you have never spoken on the House floor. Is that true? That
is inaccurate. That is absolutely inaccurate. I've spoken. I'll tell you right now. I'm not. I'm not the loudest person in the room, and I don't think you have to be to get results. Quite honestly, especially in Harrisburg. Anyone who knows Harrisburg knows that however many times you speak, that it really doesn't make too much of an impact. Quite honestly, when folks votes get to the floor, folks have their mind made up. But her statement that I have not spoken on the House floor is 100% false. I have actually passed legislation out of the House. I'm the prime co-sponsor of, I think, 11 pieces of legislation, a co-sponsor of another 100 pieces of legislation. So, I mean, I think it's par for the course. It's what folks have said about myself. It's what folks say about incumbents in general, but I 100% disagree with it. And I'm proud of my record of fighting for my district.
Yeah, she would claim that you're not fighting for the district, that you're not fighting for anything. You're basically just sitting there. I take it you challenge that or dispute that.
100%. I mean, I think that's what challengers say. But I think if you talk to the elected officials in my district, the local folks, the folks who are out on the ground, the folks who have lived here their entire life, unlike my opponent, I think they respect the work that we've done. I think they respect, our hard work, our effort, our following up with people, the resources we've brought back, our accessibility, all of those things. I think it is appreciated in the district.
Part of the reason that she has out fundraised you is because she's received a check for $50,000 from the Service Employees International Union, the SEIU. What do you make of that?
Actually, it was $52,000. I think it's unfortunate, really, because and they point to, the vote that we referenced prior to. But if you look at that vote, the majority of the members from Allegheny County voted the same way that I did. Yet they're not getting challenged by SEIU. They're not getting $52,000 in donations from SEIU. So I think it's hypocritical. And I think it goes back to my initial point that it's more about my last name as opposed to myself and my voting record.
Do you think Emily Kincaid's a hypocrite?
Yeah, I mean, she continuously claims, to fight for campaign finance reform, yet you're taking a $52,000 donation from one organization, $25,000 from her father, $9,000 from another PAC of a friend of hers. I mean, if you're going to talk these things, then you should walk these things. I mean, if this is your campaign and you stand by this, then why not act like it?
What's the largest contribution you've taken?
This cycle, I believe I've gotten 3 separate $5,000 donations from one labor PAC. So I guess if you add that up, it would probably come to $15,000, but it was spread out and some of it came after the reports came out.
She says that she has over 400 individual contributions. You have in the teens. Can you respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked specifically. I can't comment on how many donations she has. Yeah, I mean, I'm proud. Listen, the folks in the 20th district, I first off don't feel comfortable asking folks for money. I think if you look at what's happening with COVID-19 right now, folks are struggling. And I think it's, somewhat inappropriate to be, approaching folks, asking them for money when they're having trouble putting food on the table for their children, filling their prescriptions. So I pride myself in the support. And just because I'm supported by unions, I mean, unions are represented by people. The people vote for their leadership, the people vote for their PAC contributions. So to suggest that I'm not supported by, my neighbors and the like is just completely false.
Representative Ravenstahl, just a couple quick last questions. Let me ask you, how tough is it to campaign in the midst of this pandemic?
It's been interesting. It's been difficult, and a lot of it is due to the fact that I'm still a legislator right now. We were in session last night till about 11 o'clock p.m. So you're doing that. You have to do your job. You're representing your district. And that has been crazy just due to COVID-19 and the unemployment system. So we've been very busy on the legislative side, but we've still been campaigning, phone banking. Things have turned obviously more digital, online, and we've adapted with that. And, we're proud of the campaign that we've run thus far.
Let me give you, if I may, 30 seconds to make your pitch to your fellow Democrats in the 20th district. Why should they vote for you on Tuesday, or if they're voting by mail, cast that ballot for you? What are the reasons why they should support your reelection?
I think I've done a good job. I think experience matters right now. I think we're looking at a situation in Pennsylvania and throughout the nation where there's a lot of uncertainty with how things are going to play out over the next 6 months to a year, based off the coronavirus. And I think we need somebody in office who has those relationships, who's gotten those results, who's provided resources for the district, who knows where to go when something comes up. I think experience is very important right now more than ever. I see no reason to change. I've been accessible in my district. I've provided a lot of results for my district, and I humbly ask for the support of the residents to continue on that work.
State Representative Adam Ravenstahl, always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you, sir, very much for your time today.
Thank you, John. Have a nice day.
You know when you have that feeling when you see something from the past?
The past is the past. How'd you know all these things?